Well, hello, fellow High Vibe homies. Welcome back to the High Vibe Home podcast. I am with a lovely guest today on the show. We have Liz Letchford. Welcome to the show, Liz. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Share with us a little bit about what you do and how you found yourself in the practice of what you do today.
Yeah, so I'm a huge believer in the power of our body's intelligence to understand and guide us and heal itself. And over the past 17 years, I've been studying the body. So I have a PhD in Kinesiology and Rehabilitation Science, and I also have been developing my body's intelligence. So just as our mind has an IQ, our body has a similar capacity. And so as I've been developing my body's higher intelligence, I have had access to sensations and sensing certain things that I didn't have access to before. And so my ability to sense these things was at first very overwhelming. So people who maybe identify as like empaths or really sensitive humans or highly sensing awareness, or people who might be drawn to more of the like healing arts, or creative arts or artists in general. There's this like ability to sense and then share what they see from their perspective. Well, I found that to be really overwhelming. So I took my knowledge about the nervous system in the body and I developed a breath practice to help me sense just enough to be able to discharge whatever was in the way of my whole higher body intelligence, and without getting carried away in the emotional release. So when we feel our feelings, when we feel our emotions, when we release trauma or integrate trauma, we're able to have a more harmonious body and life and relationships. And so I developed the spirokinetic breath practice, Letchford spirokinetic breath. And I use that in my community called Body Church. And it's a place where everyone comes and we do the breath practice together and we have beautiful community. And it's truly like the church I wish that I had always had. It's the movement practice I wish that I had. It's the community that is agreed to be like mirrors for each other that I always wish that I had. And turns out so many people all over the globe also craved this. And so Body Church has very quickly become a global community. We have communities in Kenya and Egypt. We have communities in South America and Mexico and all over the US. And it's just individuals coming together to be like, hey, I really want to unearth my body's intelligence, and I don't need to be so hokey or woo-woo or anything about it. I just want a cool place to feel like myself, and I don't have to buy into any particular culture. The culture is whatever you bring. So Body Church changes no matter who joins the community. So it's been so different than I ever expected, this path that I would ever have imagined myself to be on. But that's what happens when you're able to listen and connect to your body's wisdom.
That is very well said. I think that, the body, we're so programmed to think of the body in a certain way because as a woman, we go through many changes. We go through time in which our body is changing from large to small to saggy and wrinkly and all these different things. So I think that the intelligence of the body is something maybe a lot of us don't actually really understand the power of, right? So what did that look like for you when you started understanding and recognizing what your body's intelligence actually could do?
Oof. For me, it kind of opened all at once. So one day I was sitting on the beach in Baja, Mexico at like a friend's party and everyone else was dancing together and I was like, I gotta sit down. I don't know what's happening. And all of a sudden my spine started moving in this S shape and it was almost like a force smarter than me, larger than me was breathing me out all the way and then breathing me in all the way. And I wasn't on any substances or anything. I mean, I joke, I was like, I had a Diet Coke to try and stay awake with the caffeine. So maybe that's what did it. But my body was primed and ready to let my body's intelligence take over. So at first I was scared. I was like, something is breathing me. But it was finally not my fear. It was finally not my ego breathing me. I felt like I was being breathed by something bigger than me. It was so wild. And I kind of grappled with surrendering to it. And so as I was being breathed all the way out, I'm a scientist too. So I was like observing it and like, whoa, what's going on?
Right.
But
Yeah.
also like, this is magic really. And I was being breathed all the way out. And then my body would be guided to twist. My spine would twist and I would get pop, pop, crack. And then I would breathe all the way in, and then I would breathe all the way out, and I would whoo, whoo. And it was like my body's intelligence had completely taken over. It was like, Liz, all right, we're smarter than you. We're coming in like an army of my best interest. And so it was very disorienting because I had never studied any ancient practices. I had never studied any spiritual practices. I had known, I'd known enough just from being a human in this society of,
Right.
okay, this is how Tantra defines your body's wisdom. This is how yoga defines your body's movement wisdom. This is how Buddhism talks about different practices. And I don't identify with any of those lineages at all. And so I had deeply studied for 15 years the lineage of the body. Well, what is the body's wisdom? Yeah. And so from that personal experience, I started creating my own understanding in the context of the body that didn't necessarily create deities. It didn't create any sort of, it wasn't even in line with any sort of existing religion, because it was so personal and it was so modern and it was so what I needed to do in order to understand and contain this experience. Otherwise, it was wildly disorienting when a force that you think is outside of yourself is moving your body. And so this has happened for forever. It's our human intelligence waking up. It's the derivative of those who created the yogic practice. So my body was being put into yoga moves, and I was like, oh, this is how they invented yoga. Someone had a body intelligence awakening. And so now if we put our bodies in these positions that your body's naturally going to do anyways, when its intelligence wakes up, they're hoping that we stimulate the intelligence waking up. So I just had this knowing as soon as it happened of like, oh, this is what happened to the person who invented yoga, or this is what happened to the person who invented craniosacral, or this is what happened to the person who invented chiropractic. I was doing all of these modalities that I had recognized but had never been trained in. I was just doing it. My body was doing it itself. And I was like, all right, this is really cool. This is really, really cool. And I want to study this in my own experience. So I moved out of I was living with 4 other women. I moved out of the house. I wanted to be in my own energy. I moved by myself. I left. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I left. I moved to somewhere more in nature so that I could really be in my own energy and understand, like work to understand what was going on. And it was terrifying. It was intense. I was meeting characters of my past inside of my being that needed to express themselves. And so I went through this whole self-initiation into my body's intelligence. And luckily I had years of experience of understanding at least physiologically what might be going on. But I never learned about any of this in school. So I'm sort of taking the scientist approach while also surrendering to my body's wisdom and not having someone who could be a teacher. I let my body be the teacher. And so when I finally came to neutral and settled into a deeper understanding based on what I was experiencing, this undeniable wisdom emerged of, oh, here's what's going on. And we don't have to externalize our divinity. We don't have to externalize what's going on. And so similar to the home, you look around and the way that you exist in your home is a reflection of how you're existing in pretty much every place in your life. The same goes for the body. And so how you're existing, your relationship to your body can be a reflection of your relationship to nature, to other people, to your work, to that which is greater than you, whether you call it God or divinity or nature or energy or universe, whatever you call it. And so I'm so hungry to observe how that happens in other people. So
Mm.
when I started Body Church, it created a safe space for people to wake up this intelligence without having to go through the chaos and the confusion and the like grasping for understanding that I went through. So it's like housed in very practical understanding, and it's not dogmatic at all. It's just, how do you see the world? Let's talk about it. So it's very much a round table of curious people who are waking up to their body's wisdom. It's so amazing.
Do you feel like you had, you can now identify through your experience what kind of led you to that event, or is it just sort of unexplained? Because you do have a background in, science and what you do. So is there sort of a way to, for the more logical,
Mhm.
maybe not logical because that sounds a little silly, but the more analyzing minds
Yeah.
to kind
No,
of
it is.
make sense of it?
Yeah, and it is, and I understand, I was very much in my left brain. I was very much in logic and reason. I had just finished my dissertation, which was all about only using what you observe to come to a conclusion, no speculations, all
Mm.
evidence-based. And so I deeply respect the way that the brain, we need that part of our brain. And so logically speaking, what happened was, to the best of my understanding, was I had been doing somatic release. If you've heard of internal family systems, it's
Yeah.
this somatic therapy, if you will.
Yeah.
And my body had a memory that my brain didn't store. And so my body had a memory, and what I needed to do, I observed my body desiring to kick and say, get off.
Mm.
And and we know that the nervous system can sometimes get stuck. If there's fear, it'll get stuck and create a lack of proprioceptive awareness, or a lack of the body's awareness of itself. When we go into a freeze response in real time, it almost fractures off that memory from your mind, but your body remembers. And so something happened when I was a baby, that pre-verbal, and I didn't know. I don't have any memory of this. First of all, it's pre-verbal. You don't really store a lot of your memories before, you're
Yeah,
6 months
exactly.
old. And but I watched my body. It was undeniable. There was energy associated with it. There was emotion associated with it. It was almost like what we would consider a flashback, but only in my body. My
Body
mind was
feeling.
just watching, like, whoa, weird. And I just surrendered to my body's desire to move and speak and say those things. So that happened 4 days before my energy started moving, and I had my intelligence started waking up. And so I really deeply believe that me identifying and moving a big piece of stuck energy in my spine, it happened to be in my spine, helped that energy to flow from my body to my brain and then back again. So it helped clear the path for that intelligence to then take over, really, is what happened.
I've heard so much about like somatic healing. I've done some level of somatic body movements. I'm always like moving my hips and always moving around because I feel that there's something always kind of like stuck there, or, there just needs to be that release. And we live very stationary lives today. We don't move our bodies as much in our society. And I think that's a real disservice to what you're really speaking into, is that intelligence of the body, is that connecting to that wisdom that lies sometimes dormant, right? Like we're just letting it sit. Like you referenced the home, it's the root chakra, just being able to finally be rooted at home, stable, grounded, and to feel safe enough to kind of like explore. So I love that you're doing that with Body Church. And what a name. Like, how did that name come to you? I'm curious.
I grappled with it for a while because the word church
Mm.
hurt me. Church hurt me for a long time. I grew up Catholic, and then I moved to a more Pentecostal church, which is like, you see there, like there's like choirs and like dancing and really big emotional kind of sermons. So I was really drawn to that. But as I was experiencing this and immersed in like higher, something that felt divine, something connecting to something bigger than myself.
Right.
Simultaneously, the teachings were, don't give into your body's temptation. Your body is evil. Don't sin. Don't feel sensual. Like, don't make other people lust after you. And it was just like this sit down, cover up, don't move your body. And it's funny, when I was little, like when I was in Catholic church, we would go to church every Sunday. I was most excited to just get the donuts after church. Like,
Right.
and I was a little middle school musician at the time. So I played French horn. And so I could read music. So I would just imagine I was playing French horn and reading along to the hymns. So I just found my reprieve in church, in the music, the community, and the nourishment. And it's so funny because most Sundays I would sit on the floor as like little Liz, and I couldn't stretch my legs enough. I felt like, I was like, is this restless leg syndrome? Like as the entire congregation was together connecting to something higher than themselves, my body wanted to move, but we just sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up. There's no movement happening. So thinking about that, it's like, hold on. I have this very sensitive, very highly intelligent system that was blocked at a young age. And it started waking up in church. It did. And I didn't know it at the time. I just said, something's wrong with me. My legs want to move. I feel like I want to dance, but like, that's weird because we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was drawn to the more like ecstatic, expressive churches. And then eventually I was like, listen, I want to explore my body. I want to dance. I want to be fully expressed. And I feel judged because I have these desires and they don't feel sinful. So what is happening? And I didn't find anywhere that I fit. And then of course I moved to LA and everyone's like on their Shakti goddess thing. And, and I'm like, I'm not that either. I grew up in America, you know, sure. My parents are multicultural. My mom's Italian, my dad's British, but so I have this worldly kind of upbringing, but I grew up in America, y'all. And I don't feel comfortable singing chants that I don't understand. I was never drawn to, you know, Hindu religion. I respect it, but I feel like it's not me. And so Body Church is truly the church I wish I had, where, you know, the church told us, church in my experience, the church said, here, the priest can access God. Y'all just trust us, repeat these things. Don't do bad, behave, sit down, come to church, tithe, and that's it. And you'll go to heaven. And when I sat down, I isolated myself and I really tapped into something larger than myself. My body wanted to move, and this undeniable beauty came through. And it was like, your body is healing itself through its pleasure, you know, like through it. And pleasure doesn't have to be innately relating sexually with another person. It's bliss. It's, can I feel good in my body? Scientifically speaking, when we feel no fear, when we don't feel fear in our bodies, our fascia can then create and take sensation. Our nervous system can take sensation from our periphery and travel back to our brain, and our brain gets an image of where our body is in space. Again, we're going back to proprioception. And vice versa. The brain can then communicate with the body. So bliss is simply an end result of lack of fear in the physical body. And when we're in a bliss state, we have access to our higher intelligence, and we create an energy field around us. It's measurable. I know the word energy has been commandeered as woo-woo or whatever, but my friends out of University of Virginia are doing subtle body research. It's a highly acclaimed laboratory. Like, we know there's a magnetic field around our body that contains information. And so when our magnetic fields interact with each other, we have access to collective intelligence. We have access to, wow, and taking an esoteric view, a more mystical view, it's like, if we're all just pieces of God, the one, the unity, nature, whatever, we are just seeing one perspective of, we're one instrument looking out and saying, this is how God sees through Liz's instrument. And if we just say, that's the way it is, this is who God is, because I have access to it and I know everything because I did my work and I crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's, that is failing the entire system. So that's guru culture. I've achieved enlightenment and
Right.
now this is what I see. That is not the way, not the way that I believe in. And so the way
Yeah.
that I believe in is, let's get as many people as possible understanding and accessing their body's intelligence so they can say together, what is God? Because all of us together are parts of that whole. And the more people are creating the image, the better understanding we're going to have of that divine intelligence, wisdom, whatever you want to call it. I don't really have a word for it. I grew up in Christianity, so I call it God, but whatever it is, it's our higher nature. So
Yeah.
that's why the word church, and it took me a long time to be okay and comfortable with calling it church, but it feels like a reclamation. And it's really attracting people who also feel the same way about, hey, Christianity, non-denominational, really shamed my body. And I don't feel like I just truly believe that my heart is in the right place. I have access to that heart wisdom, and there is no infiltration. I've watched as patriarchal Christian, even manipulative media I can see those narratives speaking out of my mouth. And that's the clearing that we get to do as a society in order to reclaim our true sovereignty and then join together from a place of sovereignty, not shadow, not distortion, welcoming all that, being mirrors for all of that, but really reclaiming our place. And it just creates harmony. It's all for harmony. It's not for who's better than who or whatever. It's like, what is your gift? Come on in. We need that to be fully expressed. It only happens in and through your body. Let's go.
So powerful. I mean, I relate to a lot of that. Growing up, I was always wanting to stand when I was in class. Like I was the stander in the back of the room, and I didn't, I'm like my creative energy was just always very there, but I didn't know how to understand it. It didn't, I just thought I was kind of always the oddball out, or, I couldn't move. Like even now, like I am constantly moving whenever I'm sitting, like my body just always wants to be moving. And I think that, it's really fascinating to understand and learn more about the body and why that is, or just simply like what it's guiding me towards, and to listen to the body more, connecting to that. And, coming from a place of also raised, my father was Catholic. My dad didn't really push it very hard, which was lovely. But my mom, she was always trying to find like a sense of community and something. So I went to church camps, and some of those camps were, to be honest, some of the best times of my childhood, because I got to spend time in nature and learn from maybe the goddess, like the great mother. Always felt like that was where my place resided, was being outside in nature. So it really is, I think, important to redefine the word church, just like we're learning to redefine and recapture our true identity through that sovereign like path of, okay, we've been told this thing through patriarchy or the lens of the mother, anyone who's come before us and society. And now it's time to like reshape that, and create our own view of things. And church has a lot of controversy and a lot of energy behind it. And, so I think that's really powerful to step fully into it. And you wear it well. You're like, this is it. This is what we're doing. So, and when it comes to the body, like you said, with the this field around us, right? Like this is how we talk about in Feng Shui. And that's why a lot of the Eastern traditions for me, I really have followed and just kind of resonated with, because the Western way was always so this or that. There was no in between. So finding things like Feng Shui, or things like, Qigong, or things that allow me to move my body in a way that connects me to this this harmony, this peace, this frequency that is not, you can't see it, right? But now we are able to start to measure it. And I love hearing that you like know people doing that. That's awesome. But it is everything starts in this space right here in our body. It's a temple, you know, and when we I think start treating it in that light, everything around us starts to change. Like you moved yourself into a different environment to be able to go deeper within yourself. You know, I'm right there with you, girl. I moved to Mexico away from LA and I'm like, wow, you wherever you go, there you are. And also you get to go deeper, you know, and really see yourself. So that's really powerful. I think that, you know, when it comes to, you kind of touched a little bit on like balance and harmony. And I think for a lot of people, they go through life like in just autopilot, not realizing that there's a state of imbalance in the body.
Mhm.
And do you feel like there's certain indicators that allow us to understand or see,
Mhm.
like, I'm not in balance, I'm not living in balance with myself? And because it's really easy to ignore those signs, you know? So
Truly.
what are some things that you often see when we're out of balance within our bodies?
Oh, I love that question. Sometimes, so if it doesn't feel safe to sense your physical body for many reasons, a lot of us experience a lot of trauma, a lot of danger in our body. So actually feeling our body feels dangerous. So what I use and what I encourage people to use is the reflection around them. So looking at your closest relationships or your most um, energetically energetic relationships. So whether that's a good relationship or a bad relationship, like who really fucking pisses you off? Like who
Right.
is that? And if that exists a lot in your life and there's a pattern associated with that person, you're like, oh my gosh, my ex said the same thing and pissed me off in the same way, and now my best friend is doing it, and now my teacher, now my boss. So looking at our relationships as mirrors, there's a process to go through, but ultimately those relationships that are either deeply harmonious or deeply disharmonic can give us clues as to where in our own being and our relationship to ourself and our inner archetypes it can be out of balance or in balance. And so we have this, each one of us has this, a bunch of buckets of different archetypes. And so, for example, some of the main ones that I teach, there's the dragon. I have a dragon school at Body Church. It teaches you how to step into your
Perfect
power.
timing. Year of the dragon.
Yeah, the year of the dragon. And so the dragon archetype is your protector. So it's the I'm not afraid to, and it's a snake who has grown wings and can breathe
Right.
fire. So it's like the evolution of our snake is belly to the earth, and she's sensing the earth, and so a dragon is our embodied protector. It's not a tyrant. It's not just a soldier. It's an embodied protector.
Mm.
And so Dragon School teaches you that. But if someone has in their life, say their dad was supposed to be the protector. So we anchored in, we hooked in and said, hey, I don't have protector archetype yet, so I'm gonna outsource protector to dad. And dad failed to protect us, or dad failed to be embodied, or whatever the story is for each one of us. Dad hurt me. Now we have this false belief, this limiting belief that protector hurts me. So when we try to then remove that hook from dad and resource ourselves to build the archetype, we have an internalized fear of that very archetype that is needed to restore harmony. So what's going to happen is we're going to attract in our relationships either people who have 0% protector, they feel safe, or we're going to have toxic, super hot sex with protector, the true embodied protector, but they're going to piss us off. So they're going to create a ripple in our system that's
Yeah.
all guiding you to find harmony in yourself. Looking outside and noticing, who does this person represent? I do this practice, and I encourage people to do this practice where, what if you put your face on that person? what would you say? What would you see?
Yeah.
How are you the same as them? How are you different from them? How are you not letting yourself in? And so using each other as mirrors, not to gaslight your experience. All of your pain is all valid. All of their being an asshole is valid. And when you can find harmony in yourself, you will have compassion for the parts of them that's driving them to be rude, that's driving them to be out of integrity. You will have compassion, and so you can put up a boundary, but it's not going to cause a reaction. It's not going to cause a reaction. So when we are reacting, we're literally reacting out something that happened when we were younger or happened in our family line, and the nervous system attunement got passed down and passed down and passed down. Reactivity can show up when we don't allow that acting out in our physical body. It can show up as inflammation. It can show up as allergies. It can show up as mental health disorders. It can show up as gut disorders. It can show up as heart attacks. It can show up. We are constantly trying to express and discharge this reactivity. But Body Church helps you get to the root of it and be like, okay, this person is causing a reaction. This food is causing a reaction. This environment is causing a reaction. Let's sit with it. Let's get brave enough to sit with it and see, okay, what part of this is me? How can I turn this key in my thing that was locked and open up all of this story, and then start to process it, digest it, and harmonize it. And it's a slow process. It's not emotional release. It's not swamping. It's not just yelling into a pillow. Sometimes that can blow our systems out. So I really tune you to be able to unwind all of these stories, all of these limiting beliefs, all of these expressions at the pace that your body is ready to go. A flower blooms
glow too.
and glow, and the flower blooms when she's ready, not when she's forced to bloom. So, taking a lot of reflections from nature and relationships can really help us understand what's going on the inside.
And I think that if you, listen obviously to this podcast, a lot of what we talk about in the environment is so deeply connected to that, what Liz just basically shared. I love that you brought the interpersonal relationships in, because the hardest part in relating or being in partnership or, is actually recognizing the self in that relationship and in that dynamic. And nobody wants to look at themselves. It's really easy to just go, no, not me, all you. And I'm speaking for myself, 7 years into a relationship, 1 year married, and the marriage initiation was nothing like I expected. Definitely not the shiny, honeymoon year. And what I kept hearing was like, there you are. Like, you are
beautiful.
that, and that was harder and harder and harder to look at, because it was just me staring back at me and me treating myself. And I noticed myself go into that kind of like dark pattern within myself of talking to myself, not being kind to myself.
Yep.
And this was a lot of last year energy for sure. Last year was I'm so happy it's 2024. Year of the Dragon. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
But I think that was the consensus across the board. So, but bringing it all back to that like balance within the self, it's so vital and so necessary. And sometimes we get on the like shadow side and sometimes we get into the light side. Like there is that dynamic in both. And, I think it's just really important to recognize like what is when you're out of balance so that you can put yourself into a state of balance. And why not start with the body? Like, it's interesting that I've always thought of it being the body as a vessel and a mirror, but to actually like truly go deep into the start there, let that be the beginning point is actually really rad.
Yeah. And
like, what a concept, guys.
Once I did that, everything changed around me. I found harmony without even having to clear anything in any relationships, without even having to intentionally pray for abundance, or whatever, whatever we're all calling in this year.
Lakshmi.
Yeah, I just magnetized everything that I needed because I was in harmony with myself. And so in that way, I look at everything as a learning opportunity and as medicine. And in that way, I'm taking things way less personally. And if I take something personally, I'm like, damn, that's my ego. Like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, here we go. We're back into the dojo. Like, let's go. We are back to the drawing board. What part of me is taking this personally? And you look at the like yin yang symbol, and it's light and dark, and they complete the circle. But if you look at the light, there's a little bit of dark in it. If you look at the dark, there's a little bit of light in it. So harmony is not just harmony like, oh, sometimes I'm light, sometimes I'm dark.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of dark in the light, and that's how it stays balanced. And so that's a huge, I painted my walls black in my house.
I know. I love the background. I'm like, I'm like, are you in a studio? Like, what's happening?
I am. I'm in
But
a
you are
studio.
literally like the yin and the yang right now.
Yeah. I got my little studio going on. It's the for those of you that are listening, the walls are black. I got black curtains, but I painted my living room black as well because I was in this world of high light, love and light, and da 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 da. And I wanted to be held in the womb. I wanted to be held in the void. I wanted to be held in the nothingness. And that painting my walls black, they were like this. I believe this is ugly yellow color. It was not it, but so I was going to paint them anyways. But the bold move to paint them dark,
Wow.
And when people walk in, the floors are black tile as well. So you're in this cocoon of dark, and it's like a dark forest where the soil is rich. Like that's what I feel when I enter my living room. I'm just like, oh, it's so rich with possibility. And that's what I wanted to be held in, instead of like being reflected all the light, like white walls, and whatever, white walls are great. But for me at the time, at the place that I was in, I needed to be held in the womb and pull the light in and find it in myself versus having anything reflected towards me at all.
Wow, that's really cool. I've actually never heard of anybody intentionally painting their walls black for that reason. So anybody's feeling that, get those walls painted black. I mean, what a powerful example of like the environment. I mean, our environment, our space, our cocoon, our temple, it's all connected. Our body, our mind, our soul, our, external space. But these are the things that we just neglect. When we neglect our bodies, we neglect our spaces. And I mean, speaking from like the societal ways of being, not necessarily like you and I, or maybe you're listening and you're like, that's not me, but it's just a natural sort of way that we've not been taught. We've not been taught the intelligence of our body. We've not been taught the intelligence of our home, our mind, body, soul. I mean, all of these facets of the human experience is just it's so amazing that we're here now. Like we have this information, and it like yourself, it's being unlocked through your own body's like intelligence. It's through something that you experienced to allow you to have this like wisdom come down within you. And, there's a lot to be said for that. I think that the more that we tap into our potential and our body and our mind and our soul and our whatever else is out there, I think that we have, we look at going back to Christianity. I'm reading the Magdalene manuscript right now, actually. And it's interesting because it's all channeled, but I've seen Kai Ra channel before, and that whole storyline of Jesus and what his true power, and yes. I think that that's where we get this realization of what we're truly capable of that Jesus, the ability that he had to heal, and why, like, how can we tap into that? Why is it just this one person? So I think that, yeah.
And it's just a parable. Jesus is a person who achieved high body intelligence, and then you're able to harmonize with your environment. It's why, there's still parables of him getting angry, because it was appropriate for him to get angry. There are parables of him, laying hands. And that's what you see when we're doing right now. There's Kundalini activation process, or there's all these other healing modalities, because people are waking up to their body's intelligence. It's not voodoo magic. It's not anything other than just like the wind. We can't see it, but we can feel it. No one's denying conspiracy theory about is there wind or not. We just are finally having the tools to be able to measure the energy field around the body. It's something that's affected and effective in order to heal ourselves. So all of the Buddhist scriptures, all of the Hindu scriptures, all of the Christian original, I'm talking original, not the retranslated thousands of years later. Yeah. The original texts were people who woke up to their body's intelligence, understood the reflective fractal nature of our body, our community, our people, the body of people, the church is the body. We all have steeples. We are all antennas for wisdom. It's all written right there. But what happened was there's brilliant storytellers, myself being one of them. I know I have this gift. I can storytell in poetry. You ever read the Odyssey? You ever read any of the like beautiful, poetic, epic poems? That pours out of me. That is one of my gifts. I understand the power of it to influence people's minds. So that was a gift that I have in order to say, oh, I can reverse engineer what y'all did with the scriptures in order to then salaciously say, ooh, we can make it seem, we can put this meaning to this word or this meaning to this story, and just make people believe that it's okay to cut yourself off from your body's intelligence. And so I'm like, all right, y'all, I see you. Game recognized game. We're going to retell the story. And so the words, even marriage, what that even really means. And you're reading the Magdalene manuscripts. It's like there's a covenant to say we're going to heal together. Yep. Not I own you, not this, and
so books were taken redefinement there.
Yes. And books were taken out of certain, books were taken out. Like what, why? Why the women scriptures? Why were they taken out? Why was that commandeered? So I have more questions than I have answers. I'm just like, okay, let's follow this thread of the body's wisdom, and let's just see where it goes. I have no mission. I have no aim with this. I'm just curious. And I'm gonna keep asking questions and keep guiding people to their body's wisdom, because it's innocent. It's our original innocence, and it's so beautiful. And I'm just super stoked to see where it goes, and I'm so happy that you're on the same path as well. It's beautiful.
And once you feel that sense of liberation, going backwards is struggle, pain, which is sometimes necessary, right, to get back through some of the things that need to get out of the way. And at the same time, it's just I think liberating is the word. It's just so liberating to have that and to be curious about that, because that's where curiosity led us, to many things in the world. And I mean, there's so, like you said, like more questions than answers. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm on a quest for always learning. So like, give it to me. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Good. So good. Well, this has been lovely. You have brought us some beautiful, like, I feel like very at home, as you speak, and just kind of a returning home to the body and the self and the importance of that. So thank you for that medicine today. Beautiful. Absolutely.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the work that you do. Our cocoon, our home is so important, and it really dictates what we're able to do with our bodies. When we have an environment that feels safe for us to express or create or rest. And so the message that you're sharing with everyone is one that's deeply, deeply important.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's reasons why the monks sweep away in those temples, and kind of coming back to the church, a lot of the sacred sites were all built on the principles of maybe more than just feng shui. There's something that they did. They knew the energy, the placements, the stars, the solstices, like And then you get into a place like that and you feel in your body this, like something happens when you go to Egypt, when you go to these like places like Sedona or Mount Shasta, and like, I covered in chills. I'm like, I feel those places and it's so potent and so sacred and magical. But what is that? I don't have the answers. I really don't. I think that one part of it is feng shui applied, but also there's more to it than that. There's
Sure.
something else going on in these vortexes and land and spirits, past energies, the ley lines, who knows? So it just kind of, it brings us back to this connection to the earth, and to
Yes.
who we are, that we are nature. We're not separate from it. And the church did do a really good job at trying to tell us that otherwise. But
Brilliant, really. But
yeah.
on it, gotta give it to him. Like
Yeah, right.
really, really brilliant. And the people who follow it are innocent in their own way because they are devoted to beauty and love and kindness,
Mm.
and um they've so they're not on purpose, part of something that is, other than that. It's not on purpose. It's all, none of us, even the patriarchy, it's not on purpose. We're not doing it on purpose, but we have to be able to separate ourselves, understand, feel safe enough to open. And then we can see, like, oh my gosh, I forgive them. I forgive that. I forgive myself. I forgive. And now let's just, from that place, we don't need to conquer anything anymore. But from that place of calm, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, can we create something that is kind and gentle and involves everyone in the process? So yeah, just smart. Whoever at the top decided that, I see you.
I
I'm
know,
smart
right?
too.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, let's
go.
let's let's burn it down the house.
Yeah.
Sort of, maybe not intentionally, but
Listen,
beautiful.
Kali is cool too.
Oh, beautiful. Well, you are beautiful. What you're doing is beautiful. Incredibly, like I'm gonna go dive into some of your work. I'm kind of like, what is Friday Church? I'm excited to explore more. And I'm sure our listeners are as well. So please guide us to where we can find more about you and your work. And if those are interested here to go down the rabbit hole of their body's intelligence with you, I
Yeah.
would appreciate.
Please check out bodychurch.com. We have weekly experiences every Sunday in the mornings
Of
Pacific
course,
time. Yeah.
your
Body Church.
Sundays.
Sunday church, come in your Sunday best. You can move around with us. If you want to learn more about me, it's lizletchford.com. If you would like to have your first class free, please just put in code Dr. Liz, DRLIZ, and that will give you your first Body Church experience completely on us. We are actually raising money. So all of the membership funds go to spreading the body intelligence and teaching leaders of different cultures, women, especially leaders of different cultures, how to tap into their body's wisdom so that they can lead their culture through their own version of whatever they want to call it, if it's body church or whatever, but just the body's intelligence. So we are building a global movement, and we're super excited to get more people awake and online and as it pertains to their body. So that's what we are. That's Body Church.
And if you didn't think Liz was already incredible, she drops that. She's like, we're raising money for other women to step. I love it. Yes, 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 yes. Amazing. Seriously, we need more of you, which is what you're doing through
Yes.
activating other people's bodies' intelligence. So, yes. Incredible. Well, everyone, we'll include all that information, of course, in the show notes. So please go follow Liz, go check everything she's up to down in the show notes below. And we will see you all on another episode of the High Vibe Home podcast. Thanks again so much, Liz, for being here. As always, let that chi flow, everyone. Bye for now.